Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the CAPSS Legislative Update. I'm Ann Baldwin, and I'm joined today by Randy Collins, who's a Senior Staff Associate and in charge of government relations for CAPSS, as well as Charles Rothenberg, the lobbyist for CAPSS from the firm of Rome, Smith, and Lutz. So a lot is going on up at the state capitol. A lot of things are still in flux. A lot of rumors going on there. So you really figured that it would be a great opportunity to kind of set the record straight as to where we're at right now. And of course, we'll keep folks updated as the session continues. So let's talk a little bit. Let's start off with the ECS grant funding. A lot of questions have been coming in from your members for that, as well as special education grants. Charles, why don't you kind of tell us where we're at right now?
Sure, absolutely. Well, folks are aware that the governor in his budget proposal, the opening day of the session, introduced his view of what the ECS formula and distribution should look like, and it was pretty draconian, cutting local districts really to the bone and really across the board. Out of the 169 districts that we have across the state, 130 of them were huge net losers in that distribution. So clearly a political non-starter. I think it was floated as a trial balloon to get the conversation started and to underscore just how serious the state's fiscal situation is, and it certainly did that. I know there are a lot of rumors floating around about what the final ECS formula is going to look like, but at this stage, really nobody in the building knows that, certainly not the legislators who will be writing the budget. We really have to wait until the middle of this month, April 15th and beyond, to see what the final fiscal situation will look like that can inform that budget. So I would tell superintendents, certainly be contacting your local legislators with your thoughts concerning the ECS. But as far as specifics, don't panic if you hear rumor X, Y, or Z, because chances are they're just that. Mm-hmm. The other big piece of the governor's proposal had to do with splitting out special education funding from ECS and including within what would be a new special education grant a few existing streams of money, including the excess cost grant. That is likely still going to be the case, but again, the total sum of money that's going to be in that special education grant has yet to be determined. So again, I think from CAPSS perspective, we think a more transparent, separate special education grant makes a lot of sense, but it clearly needs to be adequately funded, which really to date and historically has never been the case in terms of state funds for local support of special education.
The dilemma for our members or superintendent members is that the state budget won't be at the earliest June 5th, which is when the session ends, most likely. It always is at the last minute, as you know, the negotiating. And yet local budgets, many of them, most of them, are passed by then. So there's uncertainty. Is it going to be as draconian as the governor's budget? Is it going to be flat funding? There are no answers to that. And so, and the other issue is, I think that in some situations, some towns, there's political pressure being applied that they've heard that this is going to happen. So I know in Groton, for example, the town council cut them $5 million the other night in anticipation. Mm-hmm. So it's a difficult situation for members, and we really don't have any answers in terms of the state budget, except quite possibly the special ed grant will be a reality, which means excess costs will be gone.
Right, and there are actually some specific bills that are making their way through the process, which folks should certainly be calling in to support. One in specifically, Senate Bill 1008, which would maintain the status quo of requiring the Department of Developmental Services to be financially responsible for the residential costs of their special education placements. Historically, that's been the case. The Attorney General issued an opinion saying that they weren't legally liable for those costs, so that was looking to shift about $6.5 million to local districts to pick up that additional cost. So SB 1008 would maintain the status quo, would relieve districts of what will be a new huge unfunded mandate. Unfortunately, if the districts aren't paying that $6.5 million, the state will be paying it. So it'll have that huge fiscal note. So if any issue was critical to contact your legislators on, that would be it, because there'll be a lot of pressure not to increase state funding.
Senate Bill 1008. And Randy, you know, in your role with CAPSS currently, as well as a former superintendent, how important really it is to have a voice in this process. And these politicians, these legislators, they do listen and they do, tally the input. So really take the time to do your homework, look up the bills, and we will keep you updated momentarily as the session continues as well. These guys are over there every single day, beating the pavement and figuring out where we're at on things. So to be continued, I guess, is all we can really say. We want to thank you for tuning in to this CAPSS legislative update. Again, on behalf of myself, Ann Baldwin, also Randy Collins and Charles Rothenberger, thank you for the information, gentlemen, and we'll just stay tuned.